Ladies and gentlemen, technologists, futurists, and esteemed Minister of Digital Economy and Entrepreneurship, Mr. Ahmed Al-Hanande, distinguished officials, and those joining us digitally from around the world, welcome to this very, very, very special edition of Expand. We come to you all right from the heart of the Middle East in Amman, Jordan, where our rich past meets our futuristic aspirations. This event is brought to you by Al Hussein Technical University. Thank you very much. In partnership with Expand, which is organized by Propeller, a VC in the Middle Eastern region. Propeller focuses on SaaS, enterprise, and cloud infrastructure companies and ventures that are focused on MENA in particular. Today, we stand at the cusp of a momentous occasion that has captured the interest of thousands. An astounding 14,000 people attempted to grab tickets to this very event. They were claimed in just around 100 seconds. It was amazing. We express our regrets, of course, for those who weren't able to be with us today. Yet, this reflects the immense enthusiasm and potential that our special guest at Artificial Intelligence holds in Amman. It also illustrates our unwavering commitment towards shaping a resilient AI industry and pioneering it in the future of MENA for today and beyond. Of course, it probably also illustrates that many of us went onto ChatGPT. We asked it to write us a script and actually buy that ticket or get that ticket right when the clock struck 6 on Eventbrite. Let's admit, who actually did that? Some of you actually did, but I at least did it. We use ChatGPT for a lot of things today. Today, even reporters and presenters are ending their speeches with, well, this speech was not written by a human being, it was written by a bot. However, this speech that I'm giving you today is written completely by a human. And my name is Fuad Jarius. I'm the co-founder of a company. Thank you very much. I am proudly the co-founder of a company called Maqsam, also a propeller company. Maqsam, thank you very much. Maqsam is reimagining customer engagements with the power of Arabic AI. And Maqsam is no anomaly. We have many companies innovating in this space today. Despite the modest size of Jordan, we remain a powerhouse here in Jordan for tech companies, and we have some of the most exits in the region. We started very early on, and we supply engineering talent to the rest of the MENA region as well. Not only are we the creators of overwhelmingly the majority of content on the internet, but we also have witnessed the highest number of companies that were bought out by external parties outside the region as well, and we now see acquisitions happening from Jordan to the rest of the region. It's very similar to Silicon Valley, only with authentic hummus. Jordan's potential, coupled with our localized data sets, provide unique AI opportunities at the forefront of this thrilling era. As they say, curiosity killed the cat. But in the case of AI, curiosity would clone it, train it, turn it into a scholar, and then you'd see it headlining TED Talks and also writing papers all on its own. Before you know it, in less than 8 months since the public release of some of these AI tools, the world has changed. Promising concept of AI has been a transformative force, reshaping society and our collective futures. A new oracle has emerged out of a digital lamp. If you've interacted with AI, this oracle sometimes is more like a teenager, full of potential, but a little biased, occasionally throwing tantrums, and we often don't know what it wants from life, or what we want from it. Nevertheless, it simultaneously is creating a deeply personal and evolving experience and relationship with every single one of us. AI presents an infinite possibility that possesses captivating existential dilemmas that could rival a plot of a Black Mirror episode. And then we have data. As we contemplate entrusting our invaluable data and resources to global firms, we navigate a potential scenario that's a mix of the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good for the short-term gains and immediate benefits, bad for the loss of the local opportunities that could allow us to differentiate in our own corner of the world, and downright ugly because of the potential to erode our identity in the process, which is profoundly concerning. Our aim today is to delve into this fascinating narrative and our privilege to have a leading global figure amongst us to guide our exploration. But remember, each of you have played an integral part in this event by asking your questions through the links that we provided earlier on. And these questions will go into an open Q&A after the session that we have today. But we will commence with Zaid Al-Farikh, the founder of Propeller as well, our great friend, moderating a wonderful session. And of course, joining Zaid, our open AI public policy researcher, Lama Ahmed. And now, without further ado, I have the distinct pleasure to introduce the individual who transcends introduction, Mr. Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI.
All right. Fuad, thank you so much for the introduction. Sam, we are like above the moon, super excited about you coming to Jordan.
We're
really
super excited to be here. This is my first visit. It's super cool. Yeah, thank you all.
We're very happy. So maybe we start with a falafel poll, just to kind of kick this off. Quds or Abu Jbara? What do you guys think Sam should have at the beginning? Okay, Quds. Then
right. Great.
Amazing. Okay, so first of all, I think for your reference, maybe I'll just quickly introduce the audience. We have a lot of people from the government. We have His Excellency Ahmed Al-Hanande, who's leading the wave on the digital transformation front in Jordan. We have Dr. Mohammed Al-Is'is, who's been a very good close friend and a long-term mentor as well. And of course, we have Dr. Tuqan leading a lot of the energy-related stuff for a very long time as well. And obviously, we have the bulk of the audience is more towards devs, data scientists, software engineers, data engineers across the board. We kind of made sure that we want to be inclusive about capital allocation. So we have some representation from venture capital, private equity, funds of funds. Obviously, everybody's excited to know how can they leverage a lot of that. We have industry leaders in Jordan, in MENA, and also companies that made it outside of Jordan to the US as well. So you have a lot of people from pharma, agriculture. Is the chairman of Del Monte as well is here, one of the biggest food producers in the world. Of course, we have a lot of people from finance, logistics, manufacturing across the board as well. And of course, a big thank you to Dr. Ismail Hinti, for hosting the event and obviously getting a lot of the great people from HTU students and academia as well. A big thank you finally for Tambi Jaluqa for making all of Expand happen. Really appreciate it, Tambi. All right, so Sam, I think one of the biggest things like we've been always thinking about, is AI like the big reset, right? Technology and the internet is actually giving us an equalizer. It's giving fair opportunity across the world. Good founding teams, good products, a little bit of capital can actually build multi-billion-dollar businesses that touch millions of lives. You certainly have done this through your journey with YC, and it's been really something inspirational for all of us, of course. The nice things about AI is it's gotten the cost of shipping something really low. And it's become really like a great path to kind of build companies. We've had a couple of them in Jordan. We have Maqsam, our very own Fuad Jais, who just introduced us, who's building a lot of deep learning stuff for speech to text algorithms. We have Bionel that's making bioinformatics available for everyone on top of ChatGPT, by the way, and they've actually raised a bunch of money now. So Sam, is AI the big reset? Are we having like this normalized approach to this?
Yeah, I think it will be certainly the biggest opportunity and leap forward in technology that we've ever seen, and also the most equalizing force. It takes some work to make sure that's going to happen, but I think the natural case of this is making something that has been expensive and difficult to access, which is intelligence, super available. And I think we're still underestimating what a big deal that's going to be, how much that's going to transform the whole world. But yeah, I guess anytime the world is going to progress so far forward so quickly this much, that is somewhat of a reset. And these are like the most exciting times to I think, get to live through the opportunity in front of us, right, as a world in front of us right now to create a very new and much better future, I think is certainly the most exciting moment in tech I've ever seen. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's been about 2 years that I've been working at OpenAI now, and just seeing the change from when I first joined to really OpenAI not being a household name, no real thing to point to at that time, to being able to point to ChatGPT as something that everyone knows around the world is really incredible. So I'd say it's a really big moment.
This is not the moment, yeah. I mean, this is like the warm-up to the moment. The steepness of the curve that we're on and what we'll be able to deliver in the coming years, I think, is going to be truly remarkable.
I mean, maybe I'm diving on this question because at emerging markets, we do believe that, things are a bit secondary to us, right? A lot of the tech happens in California and San Francisco. And, there's a bunch of, maybe as a kind of opportunity around, where does it lie really? Is it towards building the large language models? Is it around moving forward, building a lot of the data sets that would kind of leverage a lot of those opportunities? So I'll give you an example. OpenAI has obviously led the way. You guys have opened a bunch of tech already on GitHub. Whisper, Jukebox, GPT-2, DALI, you name it. And obviously a lot of cool tooling around eval, which has been phenomenal, really. Obviously our very own Riplet has launched, Riplet LM.
Great company.
Great company, absolutely. And those guys have done like 3 billion parameters, I think, and the whole model is like 5 gigs. Falcon, our neighbors in Abu Dhabi as well, have launched the 40B, and obviously they've made it royalty-free, I think, a couple of days ago. And obviously with what we're seeing, Sam, is like the advancement of open source tech, and people adopting this has really accelerated stuff. So, if you were to advise us as an emerging economy, not Jordan specific, but maybe the entirety of the emerging world, do you think we should be investing more in building those infrastructural AI capabilities, or should we be leveraging more and more like data assets that are maybe specific to our region, our culture, our values in general?
So first of all, we're a little biased here because we make an API. We think we have the best models and the best system in the world, and we want people to use it. But I really do think, and so much of our mission is how we get the world to benefit from AI. I really do think that figuring out how to take these models and use them in different contexts for different services and go build whatever you can imagine on top of it. We view our job as to build the tool, and then we think it's everybody else's job to unleash all of human creativity on top of it. We will keep making the models better and better, and the API more and more powerful. And I think what people can do around the world has been amazing. So we've been on this long trip to a lot of places. There's 2 reasons for it. One is we want to get out of the SF bubble and hear what places all around the world want us to do, are afraid of us doing, would like us to build, are upset with us about. And then the other is just to learn about what people are building. And they've both been great, but the learning what people are building has been amazing to see. And I think I would just say go build and do amazing things.
Amazing.
I think this has got to be the best moment since the internet, at least.
Absolutely.
To start a new company or to build a new product.
I'm just going to maybe do a quick follow-up on this one. The strategy for OpenAI, are we going towards more openness on models or more, API-driven capabilities on top of it for startups to kind of build on top of that?
We'll do both. We open source stuff. We'll continue to open source more stuff. We put models in APIs. We'll continue to put more models in the APIs. We try to make a decision based off of all the different factors pushing on us at any given time. But you can expect much more of both from us in the future. Amazing.
Okay, so I think, there's obviously, as you said, 2 sides of it, leveraging the APIs and building stuff on top of it. But, we feel data is obviously a big deal, right? Jordan specifically, is one of the biggest content production places in the entire Middle East, North Africa region. We're talking about 400 million people. And Jordan actually maybe the smallest or the smaller ones actually producing the bulk of that content. So we built multi-million-dollar companies in Jordan towards, public content like موضوع.com, الطبي for for medical and health related, ترجمة who's been doing a lot of work around very domain specific translation and transcription, أبواب a lot on the educational side. And with all of that, we're still like, I'd say around 3 to 5%, maybe 5% actually of the entire internet. So the main question is, if data is kind of a leverage or an advantage, until when is that advantage there, right? The models eventually will get trained. What's your thoughts on that?
I think everyone feels a little confused about this right now. There's uncertainty about whether people want these models to be databases or reasoning engines. If it's a database, it is certainly the world's worst, most expensive, slowest, least accurate, bad database. But if it's a reasoning engine, it's certainly the best reasoning engine besides human brains that we have so far. And my personal belief is that people will realize that what they really want out of these models, as they get more powerful, as we get to the GPT 5, 6, whatever era, people will say, okay, these can be great reasoning engines that are then going to go off and access a bunch of data for different stuff. But they won't need, and maybe we won't even want them to train on all of the data. The model will be good at being smart. The model will be a cognitive capacity. And then it'll go off and access this data or that data or whatever data you need, and there can be different business models around that. So I think data will be an asset in the future, but not in the way people think, where it's just like cram in every possible token.
So I think actually a lot of we've been following all of your tour, and we definitely got kind of to hear a lot about that. But like for an economy like us, obviously we have a bit on the technology building side, and I'm pretty sure like we're building some really interesting stuff that I think is globally
100%.
relevant. But I think also that there's a lot of companies that are leveraging data as their primary. So if you were to give us some advice of what's a future-proof strategy for building content or data-driven businesses versus the underlying technology off of it.
What do you think?
I mean, this is a hard question to ask when you're asking to predict the future. I think that it will be really important to continue to understand what is a high-quality data source. So if Sam's talking about a reasoning engine, do we have examples in the Arabic language around really good cognitive reasoning for topics that matter in Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and across the Middle East? How do you develop data that is relevant to the region that you are in? And I'd say that is something that will continue to remain relevant. But for how long, and future-proof is not a word that I like, because the future will always be evolving. But yeah, that's what I'd say.
Can I add one more semi-irrelevant thing? I used to run this company called Y Combinator, and I would go around the world doing talks like this. They're very different contexts, but it was about starting startups. And one of the points I would make, which this just triggered an old memory in me, is don't think about how you're going to build a startup. Are people in here doing startups? Some people? Yeah?
A lot of
okay,
founders.
awesome. That's great. Don't think about how you're going to go do a startup for your region or your market or whatever. Go take on the world. You can definitely do it. Don't limit yourself to we're going to do this thing here and we can't compete with the US companies. Many of the best companies we ever funded at YC were people that came to us saying we're going to do something for our country or our city or whatever, and we convinced why don't you do this for the world? You can do definitely as good of a job as anybody in Silicon Valley. And I think that's even more true today than ever before with this reset. The emerging economy, I think, should just have an unbelievable step forward here. So, please don't limit yourselves to we're going to do this country or this region. Just take on the world.
That's. I think our entire existence in this emerging economy is actually trying to change everyone's mindset. You can build whatever you want. You can ship to any country you want. Just aim big and hopefully get it there. Absolutely on this. Okay, so I think there's this continuous job conversation that's always, looming, and I know that you've answered this question a million times, so I'm gonna put a positive twist to it, maybe. So listen, I know it might sound depressing that jobs are changing, but I think it's a huge opportunity for emerging markets, in my opinion, in Jordan specifically, because we are a very well-educated economy, white-collared in a lot of ways. Obviously, we do a lot of work around. Maybe a lot of our GDP and revenue is actually from service industries. So, a lot of the questions we've been thinking about is how can we like reinvent the workforce of the future for those emerging economies. We would like to kind of leapfrog this. We don't need to kind of wait until AI becomes primary and then figure out what you're going to do with the workforce. So if you were to help us kind of think, and especially because there's a lot of folks from the government as well, how can we just leapfrog the initial one and just jump into AI native workforces that can kind of really do a lot around it?
I think it's hard to predict exactly how this is all going to go, but I'll make a few medium confidence observations. Number one, the systems of today are much better at doing tasks than jobs. So, and I think this is going to stay true for a while, not forever, but a while, where they make you a lot more productive if you're doing your thing, but if you're kind of trying to, have a system be a whole computer programmer rather than do some of your tasks as a computer programmer, that's pretty hard. But what happens is people can do their job, like, say, 3 times more efficiently. They can do 3 times more work. That's great. And there's so much excess demand in the world for a lot of areas. I think, we're not running out of code that needs to get written. Number 2, a lot of the world will fight this as hard as they can. And you see this with every technological revolution where people try to, hold on to the old jobs or not let jobs evolve at all. And that's basically guaranteed to be a mistake. And then number 3, I don't know what the jobs of the future will be. I think if we went back 100 years trying to imagine AI programmer would have been you would have sounded very crazy to think about that as a job. The jobs that we do in 100 years will probably sound very crazy from here. But they will be there. Human desire to create, human creativity itself is limitless. People will find new ways to get the sort of fulfillment and status and make these things to make each other happy. And all the predictions have just kind of been wrong, and I think they'll continue to be wrong. But what I would say is lean into it, find the new jobs that weren't possible before. Don't worry about jobs changing a lot. I think we are going to be in a period where the rate of change in the world is just higher than any of us have ever lived through in terms of what jobs look like. And just, jump in, embrace it, and be the leader there. You will be richly rewarded.
I'll just quickly add, for if anyone's academically minded in the room, some of my colleagues put out a really great paper called GPTs are GPTs, and it's attempting to measure the labor market, create a measurement for the labor market impact in the U.S. And what I'd say is interesting to look at there is that task mapping. So what do the models do well today, and how can we expect that to change? And I guess just really pay attention to how that evolution starts to happen, but it won't just be at a task level, it'll be at a system level.
Amazing. I think one of the things that you kind of get to worry about, as you said, Sam, I think, people would think this is going to be changing how things are done, and, how can we kind of build a framework that kind of pushes us to say it is going to change, let's just kind of accelerate that. And I think, obviously, to your point, there's a lot of mindset work that has to happen there as well. So I think maybe that's a good segue from trying to put a positive spin on things to maybe a bit, something that's been recently kind of coming up. I mean, from someone like me, leveraging GPT has been like a 10x, easily, actually 100x maybe, benefit to my productivity. Zoom out a bit, that's 100x productivity on the economy. I think we can do much more, and that's I think the most exciting thing to your point, Sam. But I think we are kind of missing somewhat around the danger of AI, right? So, I've personally, and I'm sure a lot of the crowd as well, watched the Senate hearing, and to all of our surprise, Sam actually took the first step to regulate, and maybe not the first, but a very primary and very strong regulation stance on that. And if you don't mind me, I'm just going to quickly quote a statement that you signed just 5 days ago, maybe. Mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority, alongside other societal scales such as pandemics and nuclear war. And to be very honest, if you wrote this, if you signed this, I'd be really, really scared. What are we missing?
Yeah.
What are we not seeing?
Look, I think the current systems don't need regulation, or don't need much anyway. GPT-4 is honestly not a super dangerous piece of technology. We put some limits on it. We do, I think, some things. We do a lot of work. We do some things that are maybe even too much. to make sure that it behaves in a way that we think is safe. But GPT-4 is not going to destroy the world. And so people look at that and say, well, why are you talking about this? We view our role, and part of the reason that we formed this company, and part of the reason we have this, the whole reason, we have this very unusual structure that we have, that we call a capped profit company, where we have a nonprofit that governs us, is because nothing about current systems. And we may be wrong about the rate of progress, but let's say we're right. And let's say in the next few years, we have as big of a jump from GPT-1 as we had the GPT-4 over again. And then the few years after that, we do it once more. And along the way, we figure out the ideas that these systems need, not only to kind of generate responses that are like what they've seen before, but to be able to cure all human disease, or to create a worse disease than any of us have ever seen before. They have the ability to, solve our energy problems, but they also have the ability to create atomic weapons at a scale that none of us have seen before. They have the ability to teach us anything, but they also have the ability to really emotionally manipulate us and make us all hate each other and fight a lot. That's the world that we're talking about when we talk about the need for regulation. It is not about the current systems. It's what happens if we stay on this curve. People are terrible at intuiting exponential growth. This has been a long fascination of mine about why it's so bad, but something about our evolutionary biology just didn't need this. But I think that's the curve we're on, or at least I think it's reasonable to proceed with caution and assume we might be on that curve. And if we are, then I think now is the time to start taking it really seriously and figure out, as a globe, what we are going to do to make sure we don't face calamity. We've come together a few times before with technologies that have this much benefit but also this much risk. And I think it would be good to do it again. That's been another part of this trip. And I will say, when we started this trip 3 weeks ago, I was very pessimistic about getting this done, and I now think the world will come together and get this done.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that we just have to predict coming, in the coming years, and there's so much, uncertainty about how did this evolve and how this will be used, and we're certainly not against getting this regulated early, but maybe a lot of the conversations that's been happening, Sam, is, if you regulate a bit too early, don't you just inherently slow down innovation?
Yeah, and again, we're not advocating for regulation of the current models. We're not advocating to go regulate open source models. We're not advocating to go stop small companies from developing this. I think that would be a huge mistake. What we are saying is if someone, us, somebody else, but probably us, makes a model that is as smart as all of human civilization, has the power of all of human civilization, I think that deserves some regulation.
Absolutely. 100%.
It looks like agreement, yeah.
Everyone agrees, I guess. Okay, so we would like to get to the questions quickly. So I have the last question from my side. And I think I'm asking this because I feel everyone would kind of connect with this. So you've written a very nice blog post. The days are long, the decades are short. I think it resonated with so many different people across our industry. That was in 2015, so that was around you were 30, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So just for everyone's benefit in the crowd, Sam wrote this blog post. It's kind of the top things that he kind of, or the deduction of that 10 years, and what lessons he learned during those 10 years. If you allow me, I'm just going to mention 4 that really resonated for me specifically. So, on family, put your friends and family first, and significant others, of course. Never put them on low priority, of course. On work, I think I can't even agree more with this. It's difficult to do great great job, on work you don't care about. Beautiful one. Get out of your way to be around smart, interesting, ambitious people, and I think that's the only way to move forward, I guess. Don't chase status. Status without substance doesn't work for long. And one of my personal favorites, go out of your way to help others. I think that's great. Those are really, so those are the points that in my head helped you kind of build the next 10 years of your life. And since then, you've been the president of YC, which is the most significant, for anyone who doesn't know, YC is the most significant accelerator in the world. And we have a lot of great Jordanian companies that actually joined, which we're super excited about. And then, you've gone on to build the most significant AI company hopefully that changes humanity in a lot of ways. I think you once said it's like the closest, I think on the Lex Friedman one, that it's the closest to humans landing on the moon, and I think maybe that's even bigger in my opinion. And now that you're approaching 40, I mean, what stays and what doesn't stay on that list?
I haven't looked at that in so long, but so thanks for bringing that up, because now I'll go reread it. Everything you said I still very much endorse all of those. But yeah, I'll go update it in 2 years.
So no,
I don't have any thoughts, I'll figure it out. I kind of wrote that one in 20 minutes on the morning of my birthday, so maybe I'll do it again, the same way.
Okay, I'll take that.
All right.
I'll wait for that then. Okay, so I think we'll just close with this. We want to kind of move to the questions and answers. This was really fun. I personally learned a lot, obviously, and everyone in the crowd. I think we will move it to the questions. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Sam. Okay, so how are we going to do this, Sam? We asked everyone to, obviously, as Fuad said, we had over 14,000 people wanting to come and attend. So obviously we were unfortunately able to get only the 500 almost. So what we've done is we've asked everyone to kind of send in the questions. We tried to curate as much as we can. So we're going to kind of take the ones that we've seen really important in a lot of ways.
Great.
So I'll start with the first one and hand it over to Tukhan. So the first one is, we've had this deal with Microsoft on fusion energy, and with building an AI, with building OpenAI, that's quite the big, quite the big ambitions, I guess. So I think in that lens, how does that compare to what you're doing with OpenAI? And maybe I'll just extend it to Dr. Tukhan for, if anyone can get the microphone, please. Sorry about that.
Yeah, good afternoon, Sam. Pleasure.
Good to see you.
Good seeing you again. So you signed, Helion Energy signed an agreement, a power purchase agreement with Microsoft to produce nuclear fusion electricity by 2028. By all accounts, this is really very, very ambitious. Are there any new developments in the new project that you are undertaking in the Helion Energy on the Polaris? Because, the world was watching. I was just last week at the IAEA, and they were really surprised. All the IAEA and the International Atomic. So can you please update us on
For
this?
sure.
And if you allow me, is AI employed in the design of the new nuclear fusion reactor? Are you employing AI tools into the nuclear fusion reactor?
For sure.
Thank you.
So I think other than AI, fusion is probably the most exciting technological development in the world, and we are finally very close. So we'll do a demonstration next year, and that's pretty cool. If we can show real net gain from fusion, that's not the whole picture. We've got a lot of work still to do. We have to figure out how to build machines that don't break, and then most challengingly of all, the first boss is get the physics to work, the second boss is to get the engineering to work, and then the third boss is we have to build two 500 megawatt machines every day for 10 years. And the scale of doing that, the manufacturing, building this machine that can just be throwing these off the end of an assembly line, is unbelievably challenging. But the physics milestone will still be a great one to celebrate, and then we'll get to work on the next. And, the thing in 2028 is not a demo plant. That is a plant that will be running and supplying continuous real power to the grid. And that is a tremendous moment. The thing about fusion that I think is so exciting, other than the fact that it's great for the climate, is the cost of energy and the scale with which we can produce it. This is base load, always on, solid energy. I think my very rough model of the world is that the cost of intelligence and the cost of energy are the two big limiting reagents. And if you want quality of life to go up, if you want to lift people's standard of living as high as you can, you should drive the cost of those two things as low as you can. And I think in this decade, we are going to drive them both really low. So the thing about fusion that is so exciting is we're not just talking about energy being twice as cheap as it is right now, never mind the fact that it's totally green and safe and everything else. 10 times as low, maybe 50 times as low. And that will transform the world. Both of them help each other. So the Helion uses AI tools to do their work. OpenAI needs tremendous amounts of very dense energy to build the data centers that we want to have. So we plan to use those systems too. But yeah, I think if we can get this 1-2 punch done, it'll be a big moment for the world.
Okay, I think I'll move on the list. We have Ra'id Hamam from Eon Dental, who had 236 people wanting to hear his question, so I don't know where Ra'id is.
Hi. So you guys touched on that point at the beginning of the conversation, and the question was in the context of challenger companies in emerging markets. How do you see? Because it still seems that bigger is better from as it stands today, and do you see this as actually being an equalizer in terms of access to funds and resources?
I'll go first, and then Lemma can add. I actually think bigger is worse. One of the things about OpenAI is we've always tried to stay extremely small as a company. We completed GPT-4 with like maybe 250 people in the company or something. And we were up against, many thousands at our competitor. And small, focused, very talent-dense teams, that's always what I would bet on. So I don't think bigger is better. Access to capital, I do think, is about to get super democratized. I think there will be like AI capital asset allocators that are way better than any people. I think people are already trying to do this around in all these different ways. But I think what you can do with these tools is just fundamentally different. It breaks the normal economic model. I think, there was this famous example in Silicon Valley lore, which is WhatsApp. I'm going to get the numbers kind of wrong, but they had like 40 people at the time they were acquired for $20 billion. I think there will be a 10-person $20 billion company soon. And more interestingly than that, I think there will be a one-person $1 billion company soon. Because you'll just have like AI doing so much of the work in ways that are difficult to imagine today. So I think it's a super different world now.
I just add that continue to think about what understanding a local context gives you an advantage for. I'd say that for developing responsible, safe AI, especially in contexts like education, healthcare, it is really important to understand how does the community that you're operating in work, what are their needs, and that's not really speaking to size, but starting small and local gives you an advantage that we sitting in San Francisco don't really have and can't really see. And I'd say that in terms of it being an equalizer, by releasing via an API, open source, things like that, and continuing to engage in these kinds of dialogues, we hope that that equalization will happen, but it also requires you to come to us and think about how do we use this technology appropriately in the context that we're in.
That's a great point. I think like the best business book for startups ever written is 0 to 1. And there's a lot of good ideas in there, but one of the key ones is you actually don't want to start capturing a small portion of a big market. You want to start capturing a large portion of a small market. And this is like super counterintuitive, but it is true of like most of the most successful startups I've known. And that's another advantage.
Okay. I think we have this question 189 likes on it, so I think it's pretty exciting. Hamdi Tabba from a company called Abwab. They are leading the way in edtech, especially in emerging markets. I think it's a pretty interesting question.
Thank you, Amar. Thank you, Sam, for being with us today. Actually, our aim as Abwab, we're an edtech startup helping students get ahead at school and in life, ultimately. And one of our ultimate aims is to build a platform that basically allows students to learn through personalized learning experiences and enable everyone to learn at scale and in a very affordable way, obviously with the power of AI and machine learning. Actually, to give you context, The day we got access to ChatGPT, my co-founder Sabri, who's next to me, ran like an impromptu all-hands meeting. We literally dialed the entire company into a call. We started playing around with ChatGPT, just like challenging it as much as possible. And what that resulted in is building our first ChatGPT-powered product, which was led by Kareem, who's also sitting here with us. And that went live last month. My question to you is, what developments do you envision will happen that will help startups like us, edtech startups, deliver personalized learning experiences to students? Or like, what's your overall strategy to support the edtech industry in general? Because obviously it's huge for us.
Yeah.
And one more thing, can we get access to GPT-4, please?
Yes, you come find me after. I'm sorry about that. We'll make it happen. Education in general has been one of the most fulfilling areas for us to watch. We didn't quite expect it to be this impactful, but the serious impact that individual students are having by learning on their own, or teachers are having by putting this into their classrooms in different ways, it's really like, we're proud of that. It's an awesome thing to watch. We will do a lot of things to improve that. One is we've been talking about what sort of like kid-safe versions of this we can make. Another is increasing the robustness and the accuracy. So reduce the hallucinations, make sure it's actually like giving you facts. And then the third, which you touched on, is personalization. So you can imagine a system that could get to know you over the years of your education and like teach you the way you best learn, know what you know what you don't know, and be as helpful as possible. We'll take more requests too, but those are some of the things we're thinking about.
I'll also just quickly add that thinking about multimodality in your strategy will be really important, because I think that edtech companies so far have been thinking about text in, text out, but of course as we think about image, video, audio all being integrated into one system and what kind of learning experience that will create for students, I think that will really give you an edge, and would love to chat about what you're building.
Yeah, I think figuring out what you can do with GPTV, I think that'll be pretty promising.
Amazing. So His Excellency, His Excellency Ahmed Hanande would love to ask a question maybe. So if you can get the mic, please.
Khair. Sam, once again, welcome to Jordan. Thank you for being here. Once I read an article for you saying power changing from labor to capital, policy need to adapt, otherwise humanity will suffer so much. Taking that into consideration, going 20 years ahead from now, what is it that you fear every day that you will regret in 20 years' time that you did not share? And if you find answering this question, or you don't want to answer this question, what's your message to someone who was on the policy criticizing seat 3 years ago and now on the policy making seat? What's your advice for the policy making? Because when I read you talking, when I read about you talking or hear you talking about policy, to be honest, for an unpredictable future, I cannot find a way to actually create a policy for the unpredictables. So I would like to hear from you about that.
Look, we're definitely going to have some huge regrets 20 years from now. I hope what we can say is that we did far, far, far more good than bad. And I think we will. I think that's true. But the downside here is pretty big, and I think we feel that weight every day. Honestly, I think if we're going to regret something, it may be that we already pushed the button. Like, we've already launched this revolution. It's somewhat out of our hands. I think it's going to be great, but like, this is going to happen now, right? Like this, we're out of the world is like out of the gates. I think there's many short-term things that we will get wrong now or in the future, but what we would really regret is that we somehow made the world worse off than it otherwise had been. There's the extreme downside cases where, we do something that really destroys some significant part of humanity and the things we value. But there's also like more subtle ways this could go wrong. We kind of just make everybody a little bit less happy. I think the last technology revolution of social media has not gone as well as its creators hoped for. So hopefully we've learned a lesson in that we spend a lot more time stressing out about it than people did before. After we finished training GPT-4, we spent almost 8 months trying to make it as safe and aligned as we could before releasing it. But this is like a complex, very dynamic system of technology and society co-evolving together. And you can't see exactly where it's going to go. You can just do your best and have a very tight feedback loop at every step. So I think that's what I would say, is we would either really regret not being tight enough on that feedback loop and not correcting in time, because I think it's unreasonable to expect us to foresee everything. Or, and I don't think this is true, and I hope it's not, we regret doing it at all. And then on the policy side, I think the whole trick here is, on the one hand, the world desperately needs this technology. We need productivity gains. We need a much wealthier world. We need to cure diseases. We need to get the energy transition done. We need to provide everybody on Earth an education. I truly believe we are going to look back in 100 years at our quality of life today and the way the world worked and think it was barbaric. Like, we're not going to believe how bad it was and that this was something that we tolerated. And we need that. We deserve that. Like humans, we yearn for progress, and that is such a, I think it's a human right. And so you don't want to slow that down. You don't want to stop that. You don't want to stop the benefits. On the other hand, to get there, we have to stare risk in the face. And not normal risk, but like risk that we destroy the entire world. And getting the policy right to put enough checks and balances on the kind of leading edge, which is difficult to predict. You can't do in advance. You've got to adapt. That we don't make a really big irreversible mistake, but that we still get this enormous benefit. That's what policy's got to do. I don't think you can write a policy for that. It's too dynamic. I think all you can do is create a national or international agency with very smart researchers that are continuing to set the rules and adapt them and make the tests.
Yeah, I won't add too much other than on the policy side, I'd say that there's a difference between creating policies that block and policies that require explanation. So coming to the companies like us and others asking, why does this work this way? How does this work for me and my people? And how do we continue to make it equitable? I think those are the really important ways that policy can help push this all in a positive direction.
There's a question about hallucinations. So
About what?
Hallucinations.
Oh.
And so maybe I'll take that. And as well, that's like a huge bump on the question list. So Muhammad Jabir from Mawdu' is he here? Yeah, there he goes.
Hey, my name is Heiko, and I'm the CTO of Mawdu'. We're the largest content platform in the Middle East. And we've noticed the internet has changed basically overnight, in large parts thanks to your guys' efforts. So users are no longer willing, or will no longer be willing, to hunt for information. Instead, they're looking to get their knowledge. They get knowledge and custom tailored and spoon-fed to them. So we're working on using LLMs to kind of change the way how we deliver content and deliver content in a new way. And one of the special focuses that we put is on accuracy. So maybe you can share some advice with the audience and with us here, how you guys tackle hallucinations and the problem of accuracy, and how do you teach your models to say, I don't know, as opposed to just predicting the best possible approximate answer, which is sometimes all wrong.
You want to go first?
I'd just say that it's also not just at the model level, also really important to think about provenance, proof of personhood, and how and why people consume information the way that they do. So of course there's the experience at the model level, like fine-tuning with human feedback to really get the most desirable outputs that are hopefully as aligned to truth as we can. But in some trickier contexts, it will be really important for people to understand, where did this information come from? How am I receiving it? How do I interpret this information? And so investing outside of the model level and into the system level of provenance is also really important.
I think, like with all other challenges, deep learning will solve it, and we will teach these models to understand when they know something and when they don't know something, and to express when they don't know it, or to go figure out the answer. You know, go search the internet, go read a textbook, go email a smart friend or whatever. And I think, you know, we've been making steady progress on reducing hallucinations, but I think in a couple of years, something like that, this just won't be something we still talk about.
Okay, great. I think we have about 10 or 15 minutes tops, so I'll just try to kind of maybe sift towards
Great.
questions that we haven't touched on completely. I think Khalid Gharaibe has an interesting question. If anybody can pass yeah.
Hi. Hello. My question is about extending the LLMs to use it and use vector embeddings, etc., for a non-human languages. I'm not talking about aliens. I asked ChatGPT about this, and he told me no. So I'll ask his boss, you. So what if we embed or vector embed chemical reactions, microwave lengths, etc., not text, I mean, and then we extrapolate, maybe the models will give us tremendous output, like how to do synthetic photosynthesis, maybe new drug formulas, etc. Is there any research you've been doing like this?
I don't think the current model has enough cognitive capacity, even if we figure out the right ways to encode data to go tell us how to do what you just said, but I don't think we're that far away. The thing that I really want to see that happen, and I think we're going to get there pretty soon. The single thing I'm most excited to see these models do personally, they'll do a lot of other great things, but when the models can advance human scientific understanding, if we imagine a year in which we make more scientific progress of discovery of new knowledge than we made in all previous years of humanity, that will be pretty awesome. And I think the models are totally capable of doing this. We need to make them smarter. We need to give them some modest new capabilities, the ability to test a hypothesis, come up with a hypothesis, refine it just with thinking, and then test it in the real world and get data back. But this is totally a doable process. And what you said will work with a few additions to the model and a few turns of the model capacity crank. And I think that will be just a tremendous achievement.
So there's a question from on, maybe we haven't touched on it completely, so I thought maybe it would be relevant. Kareem Malhas, if you can post, especially because it's kind of targeted towards WorldCoin, which we haven't been able to kind of touch on, so I thought it would be interesting.
Hi, Sam. Thanks for taking my question. Hi, Sam. Thanks for taking my question. So we're talking about the advancements of AI and how cool it is, and it's actually changing the world for the better. One of the consequences, as we know, is probably the loss of jobs. And one of the solutions that exist is the universal basic income, which you and WorldCoin are spearheading, right? So WorldCoin is using iris recognition to be able to figure out who's a human and who's not. One thing I think is Jordan is the leader in iris recognition, as we have served millions of people, from citizens to refugees, all around. And we have multiple different places where they can use the iris. So I'm wondering, would WorldCoin be interested in using this technology from Jordan?
Maybe. I'm not that. I don't run WorldCoin. I'm just an investor. But I can find out for you if you send me an email afterwards. I'll ask them.
Thank you.
For sure.
Okay. So I think there's a nice question from Tambi.
I'll list it. Oh. Okay. Hi, Sam. So the world of AI is moving towards very fast due to generative AI. And it's generating so much text, images, and sending it out to the world. What do you think about this feedback loop that you might actually end up, like, the fish eating its own tail? So, like, teaching yourself in a loop and then knowledge would just stagnate?
I think that's the future. We're going to, as many people have remarked on, at some point, if you just train the models that we currently train, you run out of data. And also, like, what's the point after you've read 10 trillion web pages? Do you really want to read one more? What you would really like, and this is the way humans learn, is to come up with better ideas and then train on them yourselves. So if you think about Newton, for example, there was a time in Newton's life where the right thing to do was to read every math textbook he could find, then read every paper, then talk to every smart colleague, then talk to every smart professor. And at that point, he had basically consumed all of the math that was going to help him make progress. Reading more textbooks was never going to help him invent or discover calculus. And to do that, what you want to do is start generating data, discriminate over it to find out what's best, and then go train on that. And that process is the same as a bunch of generated data out there where the model can pick the best things. And each time you generate a bunch of data, decide what's a good step forward, put that into your training set, you can then see a little further down the road, and then you do it again and a little further and a little further. And that, fundamentally, I think, is going to be part of how we push beyond the knowledge in the world today. And so it's great. So this idea that we're going to get good at training on model-generated data is critical.
Amazing. The problem is the Prime Minister has made it, and there's a second event after this one, so I think we have to wrap up. Sam, this was really fun.
This was really fun. Thank you all
Absolutely.
very much.
We hope you take Jordan as a second home. We really enjoyed having you here, and we hope to see you again.
Awesome.
Hopefully.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for doing this.
We'll be right back.